Hello there, my name is Sixo, but more on that later because I've got a very important question for you. Which of these two toys is the best? Yes, up for consideration today, we've got the brand new Age of the Primes Armada Red Alert versus the original, which hails from all the way back in 2002. It's now 23 years old, but how does it stack up against the newcomer? And honestly, the conclusions here might surprise you a little bit. I mean, the new one has all of that articulation and everything that comes with a modern design, whereas the OG has vintage charm galore and packs a real wallop in terms of the gimmicks, and it's got one or two secret weapons up its sleeve as well, as we'll see. Now, two quick things before we get into it. First of all, I should mention that this is the Japanese Micron Legend version of the toy, so there's doubtless going to be some differences versus the classic Armada version from Hasbro. Secondly, I would really appreciate it if you could hit that like button, please. It makes a big difference to the performance of this video, and also it seems that a lot of people that watch my videos are not actually subscribed to the channel, so I'd be eternally grateful if you could consider doing just that, and I promise I'll make it worth your while. Now, today's video is brought to you by TF Source. You will find a link to their site in the description below, and you should go and check them out because they've got Red Alert and tons of other Age of the Prime stuff in stock and available for pre-order right now, so what are you waiting for? Anyway, I'm going to kick off today by saying that I unequivocally love this new Armada Red Alert figure, right? I think it's fantastic. I've been thoroughly enjoying messing around with it in hand. I think it looks the business, it's got tons of character, it's nicely articulated, it's just an all-round banger. And for starters, that head sculpt is wicked. It's got kind of a mean, menacing feel to it. It's got all the right RoboCop vibes, which is what you want from this character. The light piping is surprisingly decent, actually. Like, it works really well, and I just love his little scowl as well. Top drawer. Presentation looks really good as well. Like on this chest section, you've got some nice yellow headlights, little bits of red, you've got two tones of grey, and it's all really nicely applied. Same goes for where you've got paint on areas such as the doors. It's all nice and vibrant and looks very solid, and all of these translucent bits look good as well. Not tons of paint elsewhere, but you do get little bits such as on the knees, and this blue overall is really nice as well, a little bit brighter than the vintage alternative. And just overall, it's a very nicely presented, solid figure. It's got a great look and feel to it as soon as you get it out of the box. I was really wowed by it straight away. The other noticeable thing here is that it's a very clean design, right? Like, precious little backpack going on, you know, the bits of kibble that are there are well managed, and they're part of the character design anyway, so they are meant to look like that, but it's all really nicely done, and it just feels very unencumbered. Comparatively, the original 2002 toy is a bit of a chunky monkey, and it's got loads of kibble going on, and definitely some very different proportions as well, although in my opinion, it still looks absolutely fabulous. Likewise, it has a very attractive, sultry looking head sculpt, which manages to catch a lot of the same vibes as the new one, but the major advantage here being that he's got his little red ears. And that is an element that I'm surprised not to see on the new version, because it is on the show model from the classic cartoon, so a bit of a strange one to have omitted in some ways. Back to the old one, and it's definitely got more paint in unexpected areas, such as around the collar just here. As with the new one, the front bumper section looks great as well, a little bit more sheen to this silver just there, which is really nice. Again, it's got yellow painted highlights, a little bit of molded detail in there as well, and actually these red lights are painted on this one, whereas they're translucent plastic on the new one. Definitely want to shout out to this relief bumpy Autobot logo just there, which is actually something that you only find on very early Armada toys from the early 2000s, because they quickly realized that if they wanted to do a repaint and a palette swap and turn the character into the other faction, that they would have to completely retool the mold to remove the symbol and put the other one on there, so they quickly ended up going for flat painted logos instead. But you can see the bumpy logo here on one of these early toys, and it does look fantastic. Likewise, the paint on areas such as the doors looks equally great. Obviously, this one's got little Minicon ports, separate color rims on this one, which is nice to see, whereas the new toy just has solid black pin wheels. Couple of little oddities here, like the brown hinges in the arms, whereas the new ones are just uniform blue. And as I say, it is a darker blue overall on the original as well. Really nice though, got like a real navy quality to it. It's very deep blue, and these painted knees look excellent also. I mean, it has to be said, these old school Armada toys came at a time when paint budgets were plentiful, and just the general presentation of these toys was really something to write home about. So in terms of collecting them now, it's often quite rewarding actually in that regard. And as I say, this thing is also stacked with gimmicks, as we're going to see, but the real trade-off of that is that there is a lot of kibble going on, and, you know, bits hanging off the legs, hanging off the back. It's very noticeable and hard to get away from. It's a real defining feature of this toy in some ways. And look, that's not meant to be a huge critique or anything. A lot of the toys from this time wore that kibble with pride, like they really showed off their car bits and jet bits for all it was worth. It was just sort of part of the design, and then it's only been through animation that the models and the kind of way that we think of these characters has become a lot sleeker over time, I guess. But these OG toys, they were meant to be played with, you know? I mean, we've seen a real shift in recent times from Transformers being sort of more gimmick toys to actual action figures as such, and I think this design versus the original is perhaps one of the best examples of that. And articulation-wise, there is quite a lot going on. The head can look very freely from side to side. It is quite stiff on the neck there, the little joint, but there's a lot of range up and down as well because the neck and the head are on separate points, so tons of posing factor. Now these shoulders are really good because there is a butterfly joint thanks to transformation, and of course they go all the way up and over as well. But then what is also cool is that these doors are on a separate hinge to the shoulders, so you can have the shoulders all the way up to about 90 degrees, or you can kind of move the doors separately to them as well, so you could even have them folded down if you prefer that kind of look. You've got a bicep rotation just under the shoulder there, and then the elbows are on a double hinge. Very strong joint again, but it means that they will go all the way up, which is really cool to see. Of course, this fella only has one hand on the right hand side, but it will rotate at the wrist. Now there is a waist swivel. You may just want to move the backpack slightly out the way to kind of take full advantage of it, but that's nice and clicky as well. And the hips are really good as well. I mean, again, you might just want to move that waist slightly to avoid everything becoming a little bit encumbered by the wheels on the chest, but that will go well past 90 degrees. And then you can get out to the side 90 degrees as well, and of course there is a little thigh rotation in there thanks to that mushroom peg. Now there's a big click there in the knee also, which will go to 90 and kind of click into place. And when posing the legs, what does work well is that you can move these wheel arch sections round as well to kind of fit the pose. A lot of times when posing, you may find that this bit comes slightly untabbed like so, but it's not a major problem by any means. And there is a really decent range in the feet, all the way forward and back, and you get a very nice ankle tilt as well. Now, for completeness sake, I should mention that this guy also has these little heels for stability, which you won't see in action much in my video, because firstly, I really don't think he needs them. He's very stable without them, and visually I find them a little bit unappealing, and also they are a real pain in the ass to flip out once they're in, so I just don't bother with them. All of which means that this new guy is absolutely loaded for bear when it comes to articulation and posing, right? Like tons of fun to pick up and mess around with, tons of fun to pose. I absolutely love it. And quite obviously you're not going to find the same degree of articulation on the original, although it is still pretty good. I mean, the head will move very freely from side to side and can look up and down a little bit as well, and again there's a little hinge in the neck just there. I guess you could say there's a butterfly joint. I mean, the shoulders will move back thanks to transformation, and there's a nice little spring in there as well. So there's also a lot of tactile appeal. I mean, I love this little clicky ratchet in the shoulder just there. Really nice clunk to that. And just like on the new one, you know, you can swing the shoulder out like so, and there is actually a bicep swivel. Likewise, you do get those double jointed elbows, so that's really quite impressive for the time. This guy's right hand is just a statically molded piece though. Where it's a bit of a different story though is in the lower half. I mean, there's no waist swivel to start with. Now you can move the hips very far up to about 90 degrees, fairly unencumbered, so that's really good, but there's not really any outward motion. Like, that is as far out as the hips will go. They're completely blocked, and I fear if you were to try and go any further, it wouldn't be good news, let's put it that way. That said, there is decent bend at the knee, which will go not quite to 90 degrees, but just a little bit under. As before, you've got these wheel arch sections on the legs, which will nicely click back and forth, but they are a lot bigger, so just a bit more of a consideration. Now again, the feet move decently for the time, thanks to transformation. They go back and forth a little bit, and there's a bit in the heel also, but no ankle tilt or anything like that, which was of course a bit of a disadvantage at the time. And where there's no rotation above the thigh, there is a little bit in the lower leg actually, so you can just rotate it below the knee, weirdly. The other thing we're posing, of course, is this massive backpack, which doesn't move or anything like this. It's fairly statically sort of held into place, so the new one you can kind of flip up out the way if you want to, but this is just, you know, there. All of which means that he's not unposable by any degree. I mean, he's certainly not a brick, right? Which is the reputation that a lot of toys from this period kind of enjoy. Like, a lot of early Armada toys are considered to be completely unposable, and this is definitely not that. There is decent articulation going on. It's a little bit encumbered by some of the kibble and things like this, but for the era, it's pretty good actually. Again though, it's nowhere near to the same degree as the new version, which just has this feeling of being able to pick it up and ram it into a pose without any effort at all. It's kind of one of the core appeals of the updated design. Whereas the old one, yes, is posable as well, but it's almost by happenstance, like it's almost because of transformation and various things, instead of being designed to be super articulated, if that makes sense. Where the old one comes into its own though is in the fun department, because it's a hugely gimmick-laden toy, and it all begins with its secret weapon, and that is this guy. Yes, this little fella is of course Longarm, the Minicon included with the classic Armada figure, and it's fair to say that he's not only pretty adorable, but he adds a huge amount to the overall package on offer in terms of how he interacts. And we'll take a look at all of that, but beyond that, it's just cool to get a second robot in the box with this guy, right? Like, there's a lot of charm to it. I really love the design of these original Minicons. They're just fantastic. And by comparison, here you can see the Minicon that comes with the new Red Alert. Yeah, alright, I'm just being a bit facetious now, but honestly, it is slightly baffling to me that so many of the updates of these Armada characters just don't come with their Minicons. We have seen a couple of them, and they've been really good, but too often it's the case that they're just absent entirely, and I think you absolutely lose something because of that. For starters, the presentation on this guy is really nice. It's almost got G1 Micromaster vibes to the robot mode, but a little bit of paint here and there to just kind of make it look nice. There is some articulation on offer. I mean, you can move the arms out for one thing, and the legs are independent of one another, so they will move at the hip and a little bit at the knee as well, although that's a little bit loose once you do that. He's also got this massive truck crane hanging off his back, right? And it's so long that actually you have to kind of stick it out at a bit of an angle for him to stand, because otherwise he's kind of leaning forward. So he's a little bit of an awkward lad, and a lot of the Minicons were, to be fair, but they still have tons of charm. I mean, just check out that for a teeny tiny head sculpt for starters, right? Like, it's real Star Wars droid vibes going on for me with the kind of bleep blorp, you know, it's not really like a humanoid face or anything, and I love that. Anyway, transforming this guy is a bit of a process. First of all, you want to flip that crane over like that, and then just move these legs around on that little swivel, and oh no, actually you're done. Yes, these no doubt a very simple little thing, but to be honest, that's why I think it works. And you know, a lot of times when this kind of stuff gets revisited, they add in tons of articulation and all kinds of extras just because, and actually there's this sort of joy in the simplicity of these original designs, same with Micromasters, that just makes it work. I mean, there is a bit of play value here. Obviously you can manipulate the crane, it'll swing from side to side, kind of go up and down. You've got the little hook thing as well, so it's all good, but the real fun comes from seeing how it interacts with Red Alert. And obviously you can just go ahead and put him on any of the Minicon ports like this, and he just kind of chills out there. It does look a little bit odd with the crane just hanging out on his shoulder, but why not? It's a bit like a weird parrot. Comparatively, the new toy doesn't actually have Minicon ports, it's just got peg holes, so even if you wanted to, you couldn't fit Longarm on there for a bit of cross-compatibility. There is kind of one on the new toy's bum, so I guess if you really want to, you could peg it on there. Is this anything? Really though, it's these special ports on the vintage toy that you want to look out for, because it's when you add the Minicons onto those that they activate hidden features. Like if we just plug Longarm on the top there, then behold, yep, his whole chest flips open to reveal the little hidden disc launcher, which then if you push the Minicon back, will actually fire. This is really good fun. He only comes with one of the discs, so if you do lose it, you're a little bit screwed, but that's still some great old school play value. Now for clarity, the chest on the new one doesn't actually open. Now just like the new version, the vintage Red Alert does have a little Minicon port on his back, but it's activating this one that makes his gun flip up. And honestly, I can't even begin to tell you how satisfying that is. Now the gun in this case does have a spring-loaded firing mechanism as well, activated by this little button. Really unusual missile as well. It looks like two missiles when it's in the gun, but it's actually one, and it's got this little claw thing going on. Very strange. Now if you want to, you can just go ahead and remove the gun and just peg it straight into his hand instead. And I always like that you could do that. It just feels like that extra little bit of functionality that wasn't necessary, but it really adds something again. Now in fairness, the new one does have the shoulder cannon as well, but of course in this case you just activate it by folding it out. They've kept the way that one of the lights folds up on the cannon though, and I think that's really cool. Equally, there's no firing missiles or spring-loaded mechanisms here, but you can peg one of the little optional doodads from his wrist into the shoulder cannon instead. Likewise, the shoulder cannon can just be removed and can likewise be wielded in his hands as a rifle, and that does work really well, and especially with the additional posability and all of that kind of good stuff, it actually looks really, really good. Getting back to the original though, there is more that the Minicon can do, because there's also lights and sounds that it activates. Now for some reason these are not working on my Micron Legend version, so we've got a substitute here, one of the repaints, but here you go. There are more noises besides, and some of you may be thinking, I don't need that, but I think it's very easy now as, serious adult collectors to kind of dismiss this stuff, but no doubt people that grew up with this toy have very fond nostalgic memories of it, and those lights and sounds being a big part of the play value, so I don't think we should dismiss it personally. Like sure, I absolutely do not need my current modern day generations figures to come with lights and sounds, that's not at all what I'm advocating for, but I do think that they add something to the play factor of the original in this case, that's all I'm saying. In any case, the original does have more Minicon interactivity on offer because these little side panels will flip down like so, and then this one has this little bit of red translucent plastic which flips up, and that apparently is a little repair bay mode for the Minicons, and it's a bit take it or leave it maybe, but it's still a fun inclusion nonetheless, like it just adds a little bit of something, right? Now the other side flips down as well, but instead here you can store some of his attachments for his wrist, which is a really neat touch. Alternatively, they just peg into the end of his wrist as you would expect, there are two of them and they look really good, or you can actually put the spare one on his little shoulder mounted launcher thingy, which I think looks pretty good actually as an alternative if he's got the gun in his hand. Now of course it's a very similar thing in terms of placing them on the wrist on the new version, and the designs look very similar too, and you can kind of peg it in on his shoulder except it's just pointing up more. Now those leg sections don't fold down in the same way, but there is still weapon storage in there. You can just go ahead and peg those little red bits inside, which is really rather neat and works very well. The other piece is just on the other side. Alternatively here, if you fold up the backpack and open this little section, you'll see there's actually a third piece which is in a kind of grey plastic just here. And if you look closely, you'll see it's very clearly meant to ape the design of the classic toy's missile, although here it kind of looks like a pair of pinchers if anything. In any case, the weapon storage solutions do work well on the new toy. It's a little bit of fun, a little bit of interactivity, and whilst it may not be up to the same level as the vintage toy, it's still pretty elegantly done. And you know how much you lose in terms of the translation from old to new by taking out all of those spring-loaded gimmicks and the lights and sounds is gonna be up for debate. I mean, certainly that stuff is not gonna be for everybody. I suspect if you were to give these two toys to a child, then yes, it would make a big difference, but not every adult collector needs lights and sounds necessarily. But I think the one area that is surely not up for debate is the absence of the Minicon, because you certainly feel his lack of presence on the new toy. That said, it may be possible to just track down an old copy of Long Arm, right? And then jobs are good. And to be fair, I really don't want to run the new one down too much here, because I actually think what it adds in terms of articulation and posing is quite immeasurable. Like, I have spent a fair bit of time talking about gimmicks and that kind of stuff in this review so far, but on the flip side of that coin, I am having a blast. Just picking up this guy, posing him, giving him the once over, it's all of the kind of vibes I would want. He's great fun in hand. So yes, you lose a little something in terms of the electronics and that kind of stuff, but he does have advantages in other areas that you can't deny. And honestly, seeing these two side by side, I don't think that should be underestimated. I mean, when we looked at the Armada Megatron versus the new version, I really felt the absence of those gimmicks in a big way, but here, honestly, I think the new one does so much right and is so much fun to pose that it kind of comes off quite favourably here. I mean, don't get me wrong, I love a bit of old school vintage chunky fun, right? You know, that's what I'm all about, but there is absolutely an appeal to the kind of more action figure nature of this modern version as well. It's a definite shift that we've seen in very recent times with Transformers, and as I say, you really feel it very keenly on this specific design, but the benefits of it are very obvious here too. It just soars. It's also quite strange to see this new toy alongside many of the other vintage original Armada figures, if only because the fact that it's so much smaller kind of makes it work better in terms of scale. I mean, Red Alert was never the biggest bot in the cartoon, and actually here he fits in pretty well, but if nothing else, it gives me hope that we may also see some of the other as yet unused characters in Generations form as well before too long. I mean, there's an argument to say that Armada is currently one of the richest veins being revised for modern Generations robots, and I'm all for it personally. I actually think that Red Alert here might be one of the most impressive of those to date. The robot mode is that good, and I still maintain that it's a crying shame that none of the toys here come with Minicons, but for the robots themselves, we're on a bit of a hot streak, I think. I also kind of can't help but wonder if we might see Powerlink's redecos of this guy, and you know, the Optimus as well, which is yet to happen. I mean, they did a great job of it with Hotshot, and that came with a Minicon as well. well, so fingers crossed, I'd certainly be all up for it. Like in this case, I'm just a real sucker for that original orange repaint, right? Like it's such an unusual palette. I don't know, something about it, you don't really see that kind of mix of colours very often in Transformers, and I just think it's brilliant. But I'm equally quite a big fan of the 2004 Sam's Club Prowl, which you can see on the left here, and that could be good inspiration too. I mean, obviously we're soon to get the Age of the Primes flatline repaint, the black repaint, which I don't think anybody anticipated, so who knows what they'll do next. Anyway, I'm sure that's plenty said about these two robot modes, but it's about time we checked out transformations, starting with the new toy. First things first, you just want to make sure all those guns and other accessories are folded away. Then you have this little panel on his chest, which you want to fold out. Just get that little panel on the inside out as well. Then you can push his head down and fold that back up. Then you want to take the arms and just turn them inward like so, and then bring them up until they clip into place underneath that wing piece, and then just fold round at the elbows like so. Very stiff joint, but just bring that into place there, and then just rotate that forwards and you've got it in place, ready to be a door. Next we're going to work on the legs. Now if you haven't already folded the heels away, then you need to do that obviously, but I have. So you then just fold the feet in and fold this little section back up on the shin, just like so. Next you want to take that backpack and just fold that up so that the windshield is in place, and then just fold down that little back section there. You can then just rotate those arms in at those big hinges, just folds into place, and then the other one, and of course they meet in the middle. Then no surprise, you want to fold up that bottom section into place. There's often a little bit of finagling to be done to just kind of make sure that everything gets lined up just so, but then once you get it, everything kind of clicks quite nicely into place. It's not hard at all. And there we go, job's a good one. Very straightforward, very simple transformation, but a lot of fun and hugely satisfying as well, actually, just the way everything kind of clicks together. I really enjoy that process, and it's one of those that you could honestly see yourself doing time and time again. You know, it's great. It's exactly what it needs to be. Now, what's funny on the classic toy is how so many of the details are the same, and yet it feels so different to do. There are some variances though. I mean, the first thing is you want to rotate the bottom legs around and then kind of push the heels and the toes in backwards like so. The legs themselves then just attach on that large peg in the middle. That's basically the same story on the arms, where you want to collapse them via the double jointed elbow, just fold them up to kind of sit flush against the door, and then fold the door down. Now the backpack on this one can be a bit more fiddly, but first you want to kind of fold that head in under the windshield, then bring the whole backpack section up and kind of get that windshield clipped into place, and then it's just a question of bringing those legs up like so, including just making sure those back panels are secured nicely. As you might expect, it's then just a question of folding in those doors, which I have to say I quite enjoy as a final step. I think that's pretty clever, quite a satisfying end to the whole thing. And likewise, there you go, great big chunky fun. It's definitely got kind of a different tactile appeal to the new one. They're both kind of fun in their own way. I enjoy transforming this thing because this is like simplicity personified, and the new one is not difficult either, but they're both good in their own different ways, I guess. And my god, if we thought there was some aesthetic differences in the robot mode, that becomes all the more apparent here, because yes, they're modeled after the same thing, and you know, by and large they are the same vehicle, but you can absolutely see the differences between these two as well, right off the bat. I mean, the original really plays up those kind of off-road SUV proportions to my eye, like the bigger tires proportionally, just everything is kind of slightly more exaggerated, it all looks more chunky, whereas the new one is a lot more compact and actually looks a little bit more kind of typical everyday roadworthy, like an actual ambulance somehow. I kind of like them both for their own different styles, but there is definitely an appeal to the vintage one, I've got to say. Well, I absolutely love how compact this thing is. I mean, it really transforms very nicely, everything looks great, it's all very cohesive, there's no compromise or anything like that, you know, from any angle. I really think that they did a great job with this Age of the Primes figure. Digging his little Autobot ambulance logo on the side there. Also quite neat how they gave him actual windows on the doors, which the old one did not have, so that makes quite a difference actually. Equally, the use of translucent red on this kind of roof rack section and the lights and everything up top, that all looks really, really good. I mean, it's very similar to the original in that regard, but it catches the light nicely here. Obviously, again, you've just got the solid black pin wheels, you know, there's no kind of inner rims or anything like this, but they still look good. There's quite a nice little metallic flake in the sort of silvery metal grey colour along there, all of that paint, so I really like that. It's kind of inevitable because they're never going to paint inside those peg holes, but it does mean that visually it sort of breaks up that stripe a little bit. I guess there's nothing you can really do about that. But you know, on the whole, this is a really nice, really impressive looking vehicle mode. It rolls really well, it feels very solid. I'm totally into it. I think they've done a brilliant job, as I say. Comparatively, the old one really brings the chonk, right? And those exaggerated proportions that I mentioned. And there are some licks of paint and things that are really nice as well. I mean, yes, we've already mentioned that bumpy Autobot logo, but it kind of bears repeating because it really adds something to the presence of this thing. Now, this classic toy has Red Cross logos, which is a bit of a novelty these days because you don't get them. Red Cross won't allow them to be used, I believe, or at least there's a situation around that. Really nice red stripe again along there. Obviously, the Micron port is also unpainted, but it kind of doesn't stick out as much as the peg holes on the new version somehow. Definitely not the same kind of feeling of complete cohesion around this back end with those feet just kind of hanging out there. I mean, to be fair, for the era, this is fine. It's not a complaint at all. It's just comparatively to the new one, it's worth mentioning. Equally, this one has more colour around the back end as well, because you've got all of this kind of grey rear section. You've got some red painted stripes here where they're just plain white on the other one. These little bits of black. All of that is just white on the new one, so it definitely adds a little something in terms of colour. You know, likewise, even on this translucent red section on the roof, you know, you've got some black paint here just on the top, which is subtle, is definitely subtle, but all these little touches add up, you know? And again, you've got that kind of browny gold section on the inner wheel, which I do think makes a difference. Solid plastic windows on the doors, though, that's definitely a point of the new version. Also worth mentioning, the old one does just have his robot mode face just hanging out under the windshield there. That's a little bit funny. Really, though, I don't think the differences here in terms of paint and finish are like so strikingly obvious. Yes, there is a little bit more paint here and there on the old one, but there are some advantages with the new one as well, such as the windows. And I think sometimes when you do these old and new comparisons, you can really see the difference in paint budget, right? But in this case, it's not so startling. Now, of course, you can flip out the gun on the new one to kind of position however you want, but that's pretty cool. It can kind of move up and down. You can then add in those little red attachments as well for a bit of armament, so that's a little thing to do. Likewise, you can take full advantage of those peg holes all over him and arm him up with a bit of Evo fusion. You will need to supply the guns, they're not included, but still, it can be done. Whereas, you know, on the old version, it's all about minicons and that minicon interactivity, and that also includes the little disc launcher in the front there, so it's same gimmicks, but just in a different mode, but it still works really, really well. And again, if you've got a version that actually works, then you've got those lights and sounds as well. And in that regard, it's pretty much the same story as the robot mode. You know, the Minicon easily becomes the part that is so obviously missing from the new package, because otherwise it pretty much has everything you would want. Yeah, you know, it doesn't have the spring-loaded gimmicks and that kind of stuff, but I'm not like desperately missing them or anything, and all the added articulation and everything in the robot mode really kind of makes up for it, in my opinion. It is just that absence of the Minicon. Such a shame. Maybe we will see a new mold of the little chap included with an inevitable Powerlinks version down the road, just as we did with Hotshot and his Minicon. Or maybe not, it's really difficult to predict, but I'd certainly hope so anyway. Until then, and whilst yes, I am still disappointed about the lack of such a thing, I think there's still plenty going on with Armada Red Alert here to declare the new version a total success. Like, I absolutely love the robot mode, I think the car mode is great too, the transformation is fun, there's plenty of articulation, and just generally, it feels like an all-round banger. It's definitely the best of all the recent generations Armada efforts that we've had, and what can I say? It's a total toot. Now, as I mentioned before, this review is brought to you by TF Source. You will find a link to their site in the description below, and you should go ahead and check them out for all your Transformers needs. And of course, I'd be eternally grateful if you could hit that like button for me, please, and subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. It just helps me to keep everything going, really. But otherwise, that's it from me. So have a great rest of your day, and TTFN.